Now, we're going to talk about e-scooters now because this is a TalkTV, a Talk exclusive. And it's extraordinary. I couldn't believe it. Last year, just in the past year, 10 people were killed and at least 183 injured due to fires caused by e-scooters or e-bikes. And this is because of their lithium-ion batteries. They become denuded, they become damaged or whatever, they're faulty, and they have a tendency to explode. Fire chief said that that batteries can fail catastrophically and explode. But those statistics are shocking, bearing in mind that e-scooters and e-bikes are unregulated. You can go and get one right now and just drive around on it. Now, I'm not a fan of regulations. I think we have far too many. But I do think we have to look at the wild west of e-scooters. Surely they should have an MOT once a year or something like that. At the moment, no. 10 people dead. 408 fires caused by these exploding batteries. Catastrophically, as the National Fire Chiefs Council put it. Now, let's get in touch with an expert. He is Professor Paul Christensen, Professor of Pure and Applied Electrochem at Newcastle University. He must know all about this. Well, welcome to the show, Paul.
Thank you very much for having me, Kevin.
Well, thank you for being on. Now, tell us about these batteries, because, I mean, first of all, just as a citizen, aren't you shocked by these statistics? 10 people killed, 183 injured because of these e-scooters and e-bikes. Don't you find that shocking? I do.
I am more than shocked. I am absolutely furious, because every single one of those lives, and there's been 16 in this country, actually, in the last few years, every one of those lives, every home wrecked, every injury, every death could be prevented by some simple guidelines. The London Fire Brigade are dealing with a house fire or a flat fire every single day due to what are called light electric vehicles. And as I said, every single life, every single home destroyed, lives wrecked, could be prevented by simple guidelines put out by our government.
Well, what guidelines?
Okay, if I may, and this is why I'm happy to come on.
I'm very interested in what you have to say. But, well, let me just give us the guidelines in just a sec. What do you think of my proposal? That at the very least, and I'm not a fan of loads and loads of regulations, but these e-bikes and e-scooters seem to be, you know, in the unregulated cowboy zone. There's no regulations at all. At least, surely, these potentially dangerous batteries should have some kind of MOT once a year?
You're exactly right. It's the Wild West. And the difference is that if you look at electric cars haven't actually killed anybody. There's been crashes because people don't realise that they have such acceleration. But electric cars are heavily covered by safety standards, really. Whereas these light electric vehicles have no standards whatsoever. And the problem we've got is that whilst the quality of the electric cars are on the whole very, very good indeed, that's not the case with some of the light electric vehicles, particularly those that are imported from the Middle or Far East. That's the problem.
OK. Tell us about your guidelines that you think could help to get to grips with this escalating scourge.
Never buy one of these devices, or indeed any lithium-ion battery-containing device that requires you to turn it off when it's fully charged. They should all have battery management systems that do that for you. Buy reputable brands, and don't mix and match chargers and e-scooters or e-bikes. They use different chemistries. You might say lithium-ion battery, but there are many types of lithium-ion battery. Each requires a different charging protocol. Do not charge indoors. Full stop. Period. If you absolutely have to, do not charge when you're asleep or you're away from the building. Do not charge anywhere where there's something else that can burn. Do not charge in an escape route. And if you hear anything like a loud popping or hissing, or you see anything that looks like smoke, do not try to deal with it yourself. You may only have seconds between a roaring fire or indeed a big explosion. Okay, so you get out, you alert everybody else, and you phone the fire brigade as soon as possible. lithium-ion battery fires, even those from small power tool batteries, rapidly develop into house or flat fires, usually within the few minutes it takes the fire service to arrive.
If you bear with us just for a bit, Paul, we're going to play a little clip of a poor guy. His name's Callum Downs. He spoke to my colleague Ian Collins earlier. His mother died as a result of an e-scooter battery explosion. So bear with us. Let's have a listen to Callum.
And as with everything these days, everyone tries to make cheaper models, cheaper versions, and the components in this battery weren't adequate enough for the battery, and it did just go up once overcharged. It didn't stop charging, it overheated.
Wow.
And within 2 minutes, we lost our home, we lost my mum, everything.
That's extraordinary. That's extraordinary, isn't it? And we're just watching, Paul, footage of some of these explosions happening. They go off very intensely and clearly generate instant, really powerful heat. Am I right?
Absolutely. I mean, what I should say is, first of all, I don't want to demonize these. I think they're absolutely brilliant devices. But the problem comes if they are abused, as it's called. And when they are abused by overcharging, is a classic case, then they generate absolutely huge volumes of toxic and explosive gas. We're talking maybe 500 litres, some commentators say up to 6,000 litres per kilowatt hour. Now, with an e-bike battery, you're looking at a quarter of a kilowatt hour. So that's still 125 to 1,500 litres of explosive and toxic gas.
Cool.
Okay? But you should, as I've said, bear in mind that actually the absolute percentage of these failures compared to the number of batteries around us is tiny. But when it happens, the probability might be low, but the potential consequences are awful.
Have you spoken to anyone, Paul? Your guidelines that you reeled off just now, they seem eminently sensible. Your information should be relayed to the government. They should get these points out to the people, shouldn't they?
I have tried many occasions. This is why I was happy to come on this show. The more I can get this out. But the problem is that the government seems to be deaf. Surely the first responsibility of any government is to protect its citizens. And clearly our government is failing to do this. What would it cost to put out a media-wide campaign with something like that? There are individual fire services that are producing similar guidelines and promulgating them across their areas. What would it cost to put a nationwide campaign out? Certainly less than the cost of burning PPE, personal protective equipment, that's been found not fit for purpose, surely.
Absolutely. And you do agree with me. As I say, it's unlike me to call for regulations. I think we have far too many. But this is a question of human lives, for God's sake.
Yes.
Surely there must be laws passed to make sure that these vehicles and these batteries are MOT'd, checked regularly to make sure that people will not get injured.
Well, surely the first step is to get standards from which you can compare against to decide. But I work extensively with all sorts of organisations, and I deal with the Border Force, for example, advise them. They're simply swamped. A lot of these organisations that police these devices, they're simply swamped. There's just too much to cope with. They've got so many different things to do and not enough money.
God, honestly, it really, I mean, I'd heard about these explosions before, but, 10 people dead in a year, 183 injured, 408 fires were suspected to have been caused by these batteries. As you said, Electrical Safety First, that's a kind of charity, they estimate that a fully charged battery can release a similar amount of energy as 6 hand grenades. And the National Fire Chiefs Council said that damaged or overheated or denuded batteries can fail catastrophically and explode, releasing huge amounts of stored energy without warning. And the government is sleepwalking around this issue.
Well, it makes you, for a start, there's statistics collated by an Australian organisation funded by their defence industry, EV FireSafe, suggests that if one of these devices goes into thermal runaway in your home, you've got an 8% chance of dying and a 64% chance of ending up in hospital. I wonder whether it will take one of our leaders to be listening to the screams of his dying family before something actually happens.
God, that's powerful words, Paul, and I absolutely sympathise with them. Listen, it was great to talk to you. We've got your number. Let's make a thing of this. I'm happy to get your message out as much as I can because people are getting injured and dying. So we'll get you on as soon as we can again. Keep up the good work, and hopefully someone will at last hear your wise words and action will be taken. That was Paul Christensen, Professor of Pure and Applied Electrochem at Newcastle University, with some very, very strong words. What do you make of that?